Oh, I lost when the butter's bad.
Test, test. Okay, everybody, I think we will call this meeting to, oh, okay. Oh, my apologies. I need to make an announcement before we call the meeting to order. So you can't hear me? We've got brand new mics too. Can you hear me now? All right, well, that's great. So we can't call the meeting to order yet because we have an issue with the number of people in the gallery. We have a limit of 30 people, and there's seating for that. And so before we start the delegation, we're looking forward to it. We have to ask the people in the back to please go outside of the room. And
That's the policy, that's why the theater was made small. We had the theater, so we never had a bigger venue than we had room for it. The whole idea was that we could go to the theater, which is why they made the space smaller.
so Peggy, all right, so what we can do to offer that up, we can't just move this council meeting tonight. No, we can't do it tonight. We can't do it tonight, but what we can is guarantee a delegation at next month's meeting, and we'll book the theater. Well, again, I'm not going to. So I need to just confer 1 second, please. So I just have to say, we actually can't change the venue tonight. There are a lot of good reasons for that. One of we set up the system in here. We have our webcast from here. We're not prepared to do that because other people actually watch us. And this theater has not been set up for that tonight. So I just am saying we can't do it, but we're absolutely happy. I apologize to those who drove from Toronto or Guelph, wherever, but we will absolutely host the meeting next month in the theater.
Speaks to lack of transparency on council, lack of transparency and engagement with the public.
I don't think this is.
You have 22 councillors and staff here and 40 seats. That does not make sense. We are taxpayers.
I know you're taxpayers.
We are taxpayers.
We actually have a fire hazard. We have to defer. If we can't move. If you want to talk about transparency, if we move to the theater, we cut a lot of people who watch our council meeting about a myriad of other items who won't be able to watch it. That's lack of transparency. And so do many people that watch as well. And you actually can't engage because you have 2 people here who requested a deputation, and we've said yes. So I don't know what you're saying we're lacking here, but I can say this, and Peggy, I don't know what your suggestion is because we can't move to the theater tonight. Yes. If you're referring to, yes, you could have, well, the 2 deputies sit there, right? So that's those 2. And then you'll be giving up your seats when you come forward. So 2 more people could sit where you're sitting. You're still, even if we ask the staff to leave for this part, you're still going to have people in the hallway. We actually set up a TV out there so that you could watch it. It's not live streamed yet. That's why. Fantastic. Thank you, Peggy.
thank you. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the town of Huntsville, and we have two options tonight. The first option is we abide by the fire code regulations, and if you're not sitting, you'll have to go into the overflow space in the hall where the meeting will be televised. If I can please finish, and then the delegation can take place, and then council can hear what you would like to present tonight. The other option is we will not be able to proceed with the meeting and we'll have to reschedule. Those are your only two options. Those are your only two options. So if you would like to decide if... Yep. And it's also my obligation to make sure that we follow the fire code. Yeah. Sorry, though, if the delegates could confirm if they'd like to proceed based on those rules. Peggy, would you like to proceed based on the rules that have been provided? They're in compliance with our procedural bylaw and provincial legislation. We're governed through the fire code, through the province. It's already been told, 30 people sitting in the gallery, that's capacity, including the rest of the room.
That is verified.
No.
No.
So Peggy, if you would like to proceed with your delegation, anyone not in a chair will have to go to the overflow room. And when we start the live streaming, my understanding is there's volume so everyone can hear. The other thing you need to know is nobody but Peggy and the other delegates are able to speak before council. There's no other option for members of the gallery to speak. So we would really love to accommodate your request. But if you can't do that, then I do believe the mayor's going to call the meeting. So what would you like to do? Okay, if you can kindly have everyone that's stand in the overflow, please.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Sheila. And Chris, you'll let us know when the live feed is, if everything's working out there? Okay. I think. All right. Yes. Okay. Okay. So with that, I can call the meeting to order at 5:49 p.m. Oh, thanks very much, Ian. With that, I can call the meeting to order at 5:49 p.m. And I can confirm we do have quorum and Councillor Stone is absent. And with that, I would ask Councillor Clark if you wouldn't mind reading the land acknowledgement statement, please.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty Number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honored sacred places, and take actions toward real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thank you very much for that. And moving along to adoption of the agenda, I have a motion moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. Be it resolved that the council meeting agenda dated January 29th, 2024 be adopted as printed and circulated with the following amendments. Deletion 6.3, Christopher Lawless and Andrea Jeans, Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism on Heritage Conservation in Ontario. 9.1, Report Number Development 2024-12 Rebuilt Heritage Update. With that, I would ask if there are questions or comments. Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to our next item, which is deputations, and we do have one, as we all know. And Sheila, since you're new to our process, delegates have 10 minutes to make their presentation. And it should keep to the business as in the request. Oops, sorry about that. And I think that's it for now. If you would introduce yourselves, that would be terrific. Thank you and welcome. It's right on the screen. This is a fancy new sound system we have, so we're just getting used to it. And for both of you, the mic, you just need to hit that and it'll light up a little red button. That one, there are two, so you can both have one. Okay.
There's the complication. Testing.
We can hear you. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
We're very excited about this. I've said that already, haven't I? I know. We always had an issue with our mic, so.
Hello, my name is Peggy Peterson, and I'm here today to speak directly to our elected public trustees, the mayor and councillors. However, this presentation will also act as a notice of the public, from the public to the city municipal corporation, its officers, members, and staff, and most notably to the CAO Denise Corey and the clerk Tanya Calais. We undertake this deputation with the full support of hundreds of local men and women, home and business owners in the Huntsville area. Louder. We undertake this deputation with the full support of hundreds of local men, women, and home owners and business owners in the Huntsville area. And we are here to point out a serious problem, quite possibly a breach of trust and trust indentures, malfeasance of office, and a conversation of legal jurisdiction without right. This is leaving you all, including holding an incredible personal liability for everything you agree to and sign. So please listen carefully. At my side is Sheila McFarland. She is here as a consultant with experience in municipal governance and the author of the POG Primer, and she will be available to answer questions. The POG Primer exposes the corporate hijacking that is happening in every municipality in Canada using public-private partnerships and the international treaty, the UN Agenda 21. Public-private partnerships are legal creatures used to install a de facto global governing system instead of a local agenda. The United Nations Agenda 2030 has our elected officials turn a local dominion of trust into international territory by controlling the entire election process and the inaugural ceremonies. We think we are electing a public official for the office of the mayor as public trustee, as defined by federal legislation, but instead we get a global, strong mayor under a secret declaration, and everything they do becomes a secret. The dangerous part of this agenda is that any local decisions can be made without any public input by the signatures of only two people, the mayor and the CAO. COVID lockdowns prove that these two officers can not only call a local emergency anytime they want, but they can put a needle in your arm using only a municipal bylaw, like a parking ticket. And I have people I know and care for deeply who were affected and injured by these shots, including people that work for the town of Huntsville. Moving on, some questions many of us have now when you say you have no power or that you're the only one vote at the table, I ask. 1, if you as our elected public officials are not the body in power of control, who is? 2, whose orders are you following? Because they certainly aren't coming from the public. And 3, if the agenda ideologies, like your climate emergency order, turn out to be unlawful and beyond your scope and purview, who do you think will be held liable? The people of this community have many more questions for you, and they deserve answers. You deserve answers. Actually, we would suggest an old-fashioned town hall at our lovely theater. This would give you the opportunity to explain to the public the status of this inquiry and give you the opportunity to explain the status currently under control for the town of Huntsville. We hope to give you the opportunity to unravel this mess, and it is a mess, and restore the status of our elected officials to public trustee again. We began as a nation with this type of governance, and now we are controlled by an entity and ordered about by an international body of people who are not only not elected, they're not in any way responsible for the town of Huntsville. By the way, climate change is none of our business. We will show that to you at your Climate Change and Environment Committee meeting on February the 12th. And Huntsville is not alone in this challenging process, and it is challenging. It's happening across Canada. It's happening across Muskoka and around the world. The WEO and the United Nations are being exposed for tyrannical fraud. They are unelected egocentrics who have a plan for another medical tyranny. How do we move this forward? We carefully assess the situation, and then as a community, we fix it. People are clear: rich, the renters, the homeless, the people who suffer from poverty. And let's never forget that the people in Muskoka suffer from some of the worst poverty in Ontario. And I want to ensure that I clearly state on behalf of many people that we are saying no to any property tax increase. I'm going to say that again so you understand me clearly. This community is saying no to any property tax increase. We know the development fees and the additional taxes coming in here on an annual basis from the clear cutting and the blasting of our community, that there's enough money for you to work with. In closing, the 2022 election brought many two faces to this table, and it's a perfect opportunity to correct a fraudulent system. We're not saying any person is fraudulent. We're saying we have a system that's fraudulent. And fraud vitiates fraud. Fraud vitiates fraud. The reasons will become clear to you over time how this happened in front of our eyes. It's the planned takeover of your national sovereignty. And the choices as councillors and mayor and CAO are clear. Each of you must act lawfully and ethically. And each and every one of you must do your own due diligence, your own research, and decide for yourselves the path forward. We ask you to address your oath. Did you understand when you signed your declaration of office that you were declaring not for your constituents, but a fealty to an uncoronated king? Let me read it to you. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty, King Charles III. This is the emergency order. I was fortunate with a Freedom of Information request. Few pages. The doctrine and the orders in this document shock me, the whereases and why-fors, and we'll address this on February 12th. However, how can an emergency order on climate change have a lack of a signature that doesn't even tell me who has signed this or what office they're from? So what I'm saying is that we ask you to address your oath, and you can fix this by declaring an oath as a public trustee, so you can be re-oathed. We can carry on business on some level, but we have to fix the fraud. We suspect that once you're confident that what we are sharing is true, you will do the right thing, because when we know better, we're supposed to do better. Thank you.
Look at that. That was amazing, Peggy. That was right bang on 10 minutes. You were like zero. I think the zero came up just as you.
I know, it's perfect.
I've
been trying.
Very good. Well, you did it. That was great. And Sheila, are you?
No, she said it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Right, thank you for that. Right, okay, so I will ask, thank you for your presentation. Clearly, you have a fan base out there, for sure. And I do appreciate so many people did come out to be supportive. We hear,
support you.
well, we hear
We're
that.
here to support you, really, truly.
Right.
They're driven from Toronto and
No, that's very,
Guelph.
very kind.
And they're wanting to really fix this, and I'm here as
Uh,
well.
okay.
And to meet whatever you guys need.
Okay.
We really need.
Well, we appreciate it, and I would ask if there are any questions or comments from council. Okay, I don't see any, so I did hear that we must do our own due diligence, and that was very loud and clear. So we have our marching orders.
We have a package to give all of you that'll be delivered.
Okay, that's terrific. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
Okay.
your time. And
All right.
Yeah, like I say, we're all in your corner.
Okay.
I'm here for you.
Thanks, Sheila. So did you drive from Guelph today?
No, I'm staying with Peggy.
You're staying with Peggy. Okay, good. I hope she's treating you well, I hope. Okay. All right, with that, we actually don't have any more deputations. And so we are going to move on to the next part of our agenda. I don't know if people want a minute to Should we give you a few minutes so that,
Oh, thank God. Yeah, okay. That's why I hate it, because when I have to rewrite it.
okay, you know what? I think we'll take 5 minutes to allow people to clear up. Thank you. I know, weird. Okay, moving right along, we're back and we're starting with our invited and ceremonial presentations. And the first one is with Bradley O'Kelly from Best Life Homes regarding the bus shelter donation. Welcome. Would you come forward? That would be great. And you have to turn the mic on too. So one of our counselors.
Check.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is
Do
it
you,
okay?
do you want to sit or do you want to stand? You can do
Prefer to
whatever you
stand.
feel like.
Yes, thank you. A very good evening to everyone present here. My name is Bradley O'Kelly, and today I stand before you as a representative to Lionston's Holdings and Best Life Homes, who would be the proud donor of Huntsville's first bus shelter. So this idea came to life when I was visiting one of my projects and I had noticed a new bus stop that's come on Main Street. And contemplating the forthcoming challenges of winter, I recognize the importance of providing adequate shelter to the people who are traveling on Main Street. Upon receiving this idea, I approached the leadership team for Lionston Holdings and Best Life and proposed a donation. They accepted it, and as they're deeply committed to the community welfare, they seized the opportunity in doing so. So we would be donating the foundation or the concrete pad along with the materials and skilled labor which is required to set up the bus shelter. It is our goal to always stand by the community and provide everything that is needed and just be there to support and be the welfare for this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation and of course for the donation. That's really remarkable. And I'm going to ask if there are any questions from council with respect to, yes, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you very much, much appreciated. And I don't know if this would be your team or operations, you know what I'm going to ask. Accessibility, because I'm the chair for our accessibility committee here, and I have had a few people approach me that the current location with the curb is not very well accessible. So I'm excited for the shelter, and I know that everyone on our accessibility committee would be excited, and I'm assuming it would cut in there and create an accessible option.
That is correct. The bus shelter will be designed so that it's accessible. So yes.
And as I understand it, I think Deb Kerwin has already, is right, that's great, but important that you said that. Okay. Are there any other questions for our, yes, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Just a comment. Bradley, thanks for taking the time to notice and taking the time to care in our community. Hopefully we can challenge a bunch of other businesses to do the same thing. A lot of budget restraints and issues we're having. So thanks again for your efforts.
Thank you. I just want to say that starting off, this would be our first donation. But if we could help in any other means possible, maybe if you do see a bus shelter that is not required in Huntsville, but in Bracebridge, please do let us know. This is an opportunity for our company to grow as well. And just know wherever there's help required, we're always there to help. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Appreciate that. That's very kind. I believe there's one other, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Not so much a question, this is for our staff. I would assume you've been working with the gentleman and preparing to talk to the district, et cetera, because that is district property, right?
I noticed Director Maxwell, was she?
Thank you. Yes, we are, there will be a report coming from staff in the near future.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you for waiting for your moment. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving right along, we do have another one, and we have Dr. Melanie Marr and Janine Vandenheuvel from the Algonquin Family Health Team to give us a little overview on our health clinic, which we're all very, very proud of in our community. Welcome, you two.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here. I'll be driving the presentation, and I'm not too sure if we're going to be projecting it anywhere, or if it's going live on the screens, or if I'll give communications a minute to do that, or if I should just proceed. There we go. Thank you very much. Presentation that we'd like to go through today is called Partnering for Patients. The Huntsville Healthcare Clinic, that we affectionately refer to as the Annex, is a partnership that we've enjoyed for over a year now between the town of Huntsville, the Algonquin Family Health Team, and the family physicians in Huntsville. I'm going to take the opportunity to just provide some education on what primary care is. Primary care as a sector within the overall healthcare sector is often a little bit understood and kind of quiet. So in Huntsville, primary care is provided by family physicians and nurse practitioners. It's a mix that is fairly unique to Muskoka and very strong in Huntsville. Primary care is comprehensive care. It involves health promotion, chronic disease management, maternal and child care, mental health, nutrition counseling, and end-of-life care, to name a few. Those are programs and services that are considered primary care, but they're all available within the Algonquin Family Health Team and what the local physician groups provide. We are an incredibly high-functioning primary care group in Huntsville. Primary care is preventative in nature. It is more cost-effective and more appropriate than seeking care in an emergency room for non-emergency services. And primary care is difficult for unattached patients. Unattached patients means you don't have a family physician or a nurse practitioner. In Huntsville, it's difficult for them to access, and they often resort to the emergency rooms for care that can be provided and should be provided within the community. The partnership in the annex provides care for unattached patients. Currently, there are about 4,000 unattached patients in Huntsville and surrounding areas. That number is expected to grow due to several factors. Two really great factors are the growth within the community and family physicians retiring. Without access to primary care, unattached patients will seek care in local emergency departments, but they tend to go longer without care. They're not being managed on a continuing basis. So when they do present to emergency departments for care, their needs are really great and complex and have been let go for a number of years sometimes. Unattached patients often are poorly managed chronic conditions. They can be vulnerable and marginalized and needing medical care and social and community support. Social and community supports, access to those services and navigating those services are also things that primary care teams provide. In Huntsville, 60% of patients on the wait list have been there for more than a year, and 25% have been waiting on that wait list for more than 2 years. Over 60% of the patients at the clinic have sought primary care in the emergency department, and some have accessed the emergency department for primary care 20 times in the last 2 years. So that's one visit a month. Partnering for a solution. The Huntsville Healthcare Clinic in the annex is a partnership with the town, the FIT, and the library, and we're very thankful for the service that we've been able to provide to date. These are some really early results. These numbers are based on the clinic being open 2 or 3 days a week for about the past year, and even in such small amount, we're really able to see an impact. We see about 20 patients per day, and on our busiest days, we've seen nearly 40 patients. 75% of those patients report that they would have sought care at the emergency room if they hadn't had that visit. Patients are able to receive follow-up care where needed. That's really important, especially if we're dealing with patients with chronic illness that need to be checked in on regularly. Really good example is a patient that is living with diabetes. Patients are beginning to be referred to specialist services through this partnership. We've got specialized geriatric services that help support older individuals that might have dementia or early onset Alzheimer's, and nurse navigation services that is called SCOPE is the acronym for that. And that is the full suite of services to primary care, specialty care, and social and community services as well. We would like to see this clinic grow, and we would like to see it be sustained. So the Algonquin Family Health Team is seeking permanent ongoing funding to support and expand this clinic in an effort to provide primary care to unattached patients and divert these patients from local emergency departments. We have applied for a primary care expansion expression of interest that we affectionately call the EOI to fund and sustain the operations of this clinic. Funding notification is expected in January, any minute now. I will say that EOI was a province-wide call. The response was, I think, a bit overwhelming to the ministry, and Ontario Health. So, and it's a defined amount of money that they had in the beginning. So not everyone is going to be the recipient of the EOI. There's going to be lots of people that are left out. The need is great, and we are seeking to expand to 5 days per week and ideally add to the staffing complement. So right now, what we have inside that clinic is a primary care provider, so either a family physician or a nurse practitioner. We have a community paramedic, and we have an admin support person that's helping us all out. We would ideally like to see a social worker or even a physiotherapy. We would certainly like to expand the offerings for primary care services to 5 days a week. I think having mental health therapy inside that clinic is really important as well. Funding is being sought from multiple sources, including the provincial EOI and provincial and federal grants. Options of comprehensive and essential budgets have been created and submitted to that EOI. So we kind of presented our Cadillac version, which was, like I mentioned before, 5 days a week of primary care, plus additional health professionals supporting the patients. And the essential budget that we presented was an administrative assistant and nurse practitioner full-time. The essential budget is $272,000 a year, and that includes what I just mentioned, and the comprehensive budget is $702,000. That is our presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Janine and Melanie, for being here, but also, more importantly, for everything you two are doing for this, for our community. This clinic, the more everybody learns about it, we all realize how important it is for all of us. And I mentioned earlier, we had the opportunity to meet with the Minister of Health a week ago. And the one comment that I think we all took away, and maybe Dan will add another comment, was she likes partnerships with the community, with stakeholders from our community. And so we really highlighted that. But what was nice to know is she seemed well aware of of our clinic, right? So that was very exciting. But as you said, there were a lot of applications. So with that, I would ask if there are any questions or comments. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Your Worship. Not so much a bit of a question. One thing that's always puzzled me with these type of walk-in clinics is that when a patient comes in and you find something fairly serious or unknown, who does the follow-up with them afterwards when you send them for tests or CT? And who does referrals, all that other stuff that a family physician would do today?
Yeah, so we see a lot of that because a lot of these people are coming having not had anybody for years, and they have a lot of issues. So they're complex, and so whoever is seeing them orders the test. So if I order it, I will follow it up. If I need to see the person in follow-up, they may be booked with me or one of my colleagues who's in the next week or 2 weeks. So we have a good core group right now of physicians who rotate. There's about 6 of us who will take our turn doing that. And then we have the nurse practitioner who's a little bit more consistent. So we do share the care for a lot of these patients because we're not always the one coming back at the right time to see the same patient. But there's definitely follow-up and continuity.
Councillor Cluche.
Again, thank you for your services. Great. Does anybody from NASA, Northern Ontario School of Medicine, work with you people?
So it's a good question. And I think one of the things that's very unique, I'm sure you're all aware this is not a problem unique to Muskoka. What is unique is the partnership that we have with you and the ability to get this clinic going and sustain it as long as we have, because we're just over a year now. And so, you know, I think the success of it has been really great, and we're being able to expand to include learners in that process, which is seen as favorable with the expression of interest that we submitted. They want to see that we're using these opportunities to teach and educate as well. So we are starting to have our residents practice there. The ones who are almost ready to graduate and should be practicing independently, are they're going to be going in and basically running their own clinic with some supervision from afar, which gives them a great opportunity to see what it's like to be independent, but at the same time provide a community service. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, love this service. I mean, it's so needed in our community, and thank you so much for doing this. You said that it was $272,000 for the essential service, and then there's the Cadillac version. Is there one between that? That's my one question. And the second question is, what happens if you don't get the funding? That's.
To your first question, thank you very much. The essentials budget could be added into with, whatever service we really think would be of need to the community. So if it's the full-time nurse practitioner and the full-time administration assistant, we could add in a mental health and addictions counselor, for instance, if that was the need to respond to the community. It's modular, I think, is what we could really end up doing with that, and really, really flexible, which is what the community needs. In terms of the second question, what happens, I think that clinics like this are in danger of closing without sustained permanent funding. And that's one of the reasons that we're here. It's one of the reasons that we did, that we're penning so many grant opportunities in the EOI, that we do see this need, and we're trying to maintain the funding.
In response to that as well, we asked the minister, because she made the comment about there will be people who will be disappointed, or organizations. So it is very likely there will be a second intake. And she didn't give us a date for that, but because of the demand, which you alluded to, Janine. Councillor Schumacher.
More of a comment, really, just in thank you very much. I like that you're sort of looking at that Cadillac model and looking to the community. As someone who is going through stage 4 kidney disease, the health team concept is really important. The social work piece, the nutritionists, all those components make up the whole workup for the patient, and not just going in and seeing that visit. So I think I'm appreciative that you're thinking of those aspects from the mental health, from not just the physical.
Just a comment to that as well. I mean, this whole application that we've made was based on the premise that this would be a short-term clinic, in the sense that we don't want people having to use this clinic. We want them attached. And so while we're working on a recruitment strategy heavily, our hope is that we will attach these people over the next several years, and then we can transition a clinic like this into more integrated services, but yet have most of the patients in the community have a permanent provider.
Thank you for that, Councillor Schumacher. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks again. Thank you, Worship. Just more of a comment. When the minister was speaking at Roma conference about healthcare across Ontario and unattached patients, to date, there's 525,000 people in Ontario that are unattached. So that's just the numbers. We're staggering. So that's how important what you're doing today for our small community, making a huge difference. And thank you.
Thank you.
It's very
Very rewarding work. I would say that 80% of the people who come in thank you on the way out, which you don't get all the time. So it is very nice to feel like you're actually doing something for the community.
Right. Yes, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. I must say, when you were mentioning that number, Deputy Mayor Armour, I thought you were going to mention that as a Canadian number, which would have horrified me. The fact that it's Ontario alone is even worse. It's shocking. My mom's 77 for the first time in her life, doesn't have a doctor, right? My question is around the funding. The grants that you've written for now, is there enough in those grants to get to the 700,000? And if there is oversubscription, is there a chance that the minister may give more grants out but lesser amounts, and then you can get some gap funding through people like ourselves? Or is it an all or nothing as far as the grants are?
So the primary care expression of interest, the EOI, was announced about a year ago, and it is $30 million over 2 years, so $60 million total. They didn't specify the number of programs and services that they would be awarding that to. So how the funding goes to individual agencies, I'm not really sure what that model is, and I don't believe it was shared with us at the time that we were applying. We have been successful in being rewarded 2 grants. They're pretty small, but with the support of the town and being able to stay in the annex, and the Algonquin Family Health Team being able to purchase supplies and different things like that, we are able to keep it running probably for another 6 months.
The bare bones minimum really comes down to the administrative help. So if we lost the nurse practitioner, we still have physicians who don't cost, well, we bill fee for service. So really, we're needing the administrative support, which is, I don't remember what the number is, but it is sustainable with physicians at a scaled back version, if we really had to.
And the difference between a nurse practitioner and a physician being able to provide care is how they bill. So a physician can get reimbursed through OHIP, and a nurse practitioner is a salary model.
It's interesting, one other thing that the minister said was she likes options. So you two approached it very well. You know, again, not saying that it's successful, but she likes options. So, all right, I don't see any other questions, and so thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
We're all
very
going
much.
to do
Thank
this.
you.
And you know there is an item later on, you don't need to wait around, but
Okay.
there is an item at the very end of our meeting dealing with a very small contribution, hopefully.
Thank you very much for your support.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, right. Okay, so we are moving to council minutes, and I do have a motion moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting minutes dated December 13th, 2023 be adopted as printed and circulated. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? That carries. I also have another motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Be it resolved that the following planning council meeting minutes be adopted as printed and circulated. December 6, 2023 and January 16th, 2024. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay. Whoops. Uh-oh. I just lost my train of thought there. All right, we're moving to reports from committees, and the first one is the Huntsville Public Library minutes that were from November 14th, 2023. Councillor Cluche, anything to add there?
No, just report as written.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding that? Okay, then we'll move along to the Downtown Huntsville BIA minutes from December 14th, 2023. Councillor Renwick, anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. The minutes are from December 14th, just for information, but just to say that there is an MOU being worked on between the BIA and the town. And just some good news that Morgan Richter is coming back as the manager of the BIA. So she'll be back on the 5th of February. That's excited about that.
Bet she's not looking forward to it. She's had such a great year.
I think she has. Her little girl is lovely.
I know, the smiler. All right, are there any questions? Okay, then we'll move to the next item, which is the Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce update. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we have not had we just had a meeting, but there are no minutes for the past meeting, but I can update you on the Chamber is in the process of hiring a new executive director, and they are looking towards their strategic plan because of the changes happening with HMATA and the DMO. The Chamber of Commerce really wants to drill down and find out what they are and who they are. So that's coming in the future.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? I don't see any. So Councillor Morrison, I'll ask you if there are any highlights on the municipal accommodation tourism tax update.
Not much new to report. We did agree to fund the Limberettes Gymnastics event, which is going to be an amazing event at the Summit Center, which is bringing a ton of people to town. Other than that, it's just business as usual.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, thank you for all of those reports. So we are moving Right along to reports for adoption. I have a motion moved by Councillor Cluche, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Be it resolved that the following general committee meeting minutes and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as printed and circulated December 12th, 2023 and January 11th, 2024. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Okay. Carries. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Be it resolved that staff be directed. I thought we were taking this report away. Okay. Sorry, we'll just ignore everything. Staff won't be directed on that particular thing that I didn't get to. Okay. All right, so we are moving to our second report from municipal officers. And I believe Julia is going to present. Is that right? Yep. But I will read the motion. It has been moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald, whereas in 2023, staff were authorized to commence early procurement for the purchase of a 2,500-gallon tanker pumper truck for Port Sydney Fire Station 5. And whereas as the acceptable quote was over the allotted amount, council increased it to $692,000. And whereas the vendor is requesting a deposit in the amount of $77,000. And whereas, as per the town's procurement policy, section 12.2, advance payment exceeding $5,000 is not permitted without council approval. Now therefore, be it resolved that council approve the payment of a deposit of $77,000 to Commercial Emergency Equipment Company for the purchase of the tanker pumper truck as outlined in report OPS-2024-3. Over to you, Julia.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have much to add. This is just a request to formalize this as it's not required, or it is required because of the procurement bylaw.
Okay, and so you're here for any hard questions. Are there any hard? Yes, Councillor Renwick.
I don't have a hard question, but so this is not typical to do a deposit. They were saying that it's the canoe procurement. But my question is, how long will they have that deposit before we actually get the truck?
That may be a difficult question. I believe it's actually a fairly short turnaround for, short in today's dates, but I think it's around 12 months.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. The truck is scheduled for the 1st of April.
You want to add something, Julie?
I just want to say it's not because it's of the, we're buying it through canoe procurement. It's just the particular vendor and the length of time that it's taking for this vehicle.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any, so I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Very strange, this. I feel like I'm echoing everywhere. Very strange. Okay, moving right along to our next report. Brandon, are you coming to the table? It's with respect to the report number OPS-2024-1, the River Mill Washroom. And I do have a motion. It has been moved by Deputy Mayor Armour, seconded by Councillor Clark, whereas Council Resolution 200-23 provided approval for sites 1 and 8 as identified in report OPS 2023-46 as potential locations for the washrooms in River Mill Park. And whereas Council allocated funds up to $330,000 for the installation of the washrooms as follows: $235,000 from Parkland in lieu and $95,000 from development charges outdoor recreation funds. And whereas, as soil testing conducted on Site 8 resulted in favorable results, staff issued a request for tender on both potential sites. And whereas, staff are recommending final approval of site number 1 for the following reasons: in order to maintain close proximity to the children's playground, 2, in order to retain open space within the park, and 3, in order to eliminate the requirement for any tree removal. Now therefore be it resolved that council approves site number 1 for the final location of the Rivermill Park washrooms. And with that, over to you, Brandon.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's kind of long-winded there, eh? So what we have here is the soil test, so we'll start with that. We did the soil test on location 8. It come back clean. So there's nothing that's in the ground that is worrisome for that type of project. So with that, we carried forward with the tendering process for locations 1 and 8. Through that, we received 6 bids, ranging from 92,000 to, again, 400,000. So we reviewed the bids, we put them through a ranking, and we're proposing location 1 for the cost that's in your report. One thing I will point out is we have proposed a 50% contingency. So I think that's important that you understand that. So how that works is the contract price, the tendered amount is the tendered amount. By putting in the contingency allows us to proceed with the project through change orders if we have to, without coming back to council. But a contractor is not entitled to that contingency unless it's through a change order signed by both the contractor and the town. So just so we fully understand how that works. So with that, we're looking to move the project forward with location 1. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, look out. Thank you for the report. I think Deputy Mayor Armour, followed by Councillor Renwick.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. This is almost a good news story. It's been on the agenda since, I don't know, 2016, I think, in my books, anyhow, or longer anyhow, so good job. My question is, when would we have a start date? When do you think they would actually dig the dirt and start the installation?
Yeah, through your worship, we have it for just after half loads. So half loads anywhere between May 9th to May 31st. So it's in the contract as May 31st, but weather pending. If half loads are lifted before that, we'll start before that.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also echo our Deputy Mayor Armour's enthusiasm for this because it's finally coming. You mentioned that there was an accessibility grant that was a possibility, the $78,000, but we haven't heard about it yet. So if it does come through, that would come off the total cost of $172,000?
Your worship, I believe that would help offset the cost.
If it comes through, correct. Okay, that's good.
I'm noticing a whole bunch of people behind you nodding yes. Yeah, that's very good news. And yeah, I think Councillor Cluche.
Thank you very much. Brandon, great work, finally getting down, drilling it down and able to get the price lowered and everything. I'm just about the soil testing. How many locations did they test? And is there any area down there that if we ever go do something in the future, we can't? Do we know that now that, okay, we can go ahead and do something down there without testing again?
Yeah, through your worship. So we took 2 test pits within site location number 8. So you took the dimensions of the concrete pad that we have to put, and we did 2 test pits within that. So we didn't do anything else within Rivermill Park, just in site location 8. And it came back fine, yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I echo everyone's comments. I think this is an example of staff caring about the tax dollars a lot. And then council, it could have been easy for us the last time just to go ahead and do it because we were excited to get the bathrooms in, but we went back and we're saving a significant amount of money for the taxpayer. And we can be excited and proud of this project. And I think I just want to point out, and Brandon, I'd ask you to really reiterate that the contingency brings us up to 172, but the number that really should be celebrated here is the $100,000, 101,760 or something. That's the actual tender that was awarded, right?
Through your worship, yeah. So the number that we're looking at for construction costs is the tendered amount of 100,000 plus your delivery and supply.
Okay. And for the public and for ourselves, for us to use up that contingency, something really wild would have to happen. You'd have to find something you weren't expecting. It's not that the contractor could say, you know what, my costs went up. That's not a possibility, right?
There has to be, sorry, through your worship, there has to be just cause for an inflation in cost. Us as project managers, that's something that we manage. So the contract was laid out in itemized breakdowns. Those are the quantities. If you go over those quantities, you go under those quantities, prices always fluctuate. So that's what we manage. And again, it has to be agreed by both parties.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison, for highlighting that, because this really is a good news story. This is such a different number from what we were talking about before. And we all benefit. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick up to Councillor Renwick's question about the grant. Do we have a date on when that's going to be announced, or?
Apparently, we do not, but we will get it. Councillor Schumacher, do you have a
No,
date?
I don't have a date, but I do know we are anticipating a number of grants coming this year, with the 2025 being the deadline for things to happen when it comes to AOTA. So I know we talked, and I will present more at our accessibility next month committee, but yeah, we're looking at the fact, that was one of our discussions at the meeting last week, is the fact that we anticipate a number of grants coming this year with accessibility, so.
That's great, and thank you for that update. Okay, I don't see any other, Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor Alcock. So everybody will be aware, I haven't supported this project at previous meetings because the costs were so high. We all know about all that. I also had concerns about how reliable the bathroom would actually be. Because based on the research that I'd done before a lot of our meetings, I came to realize a lot of the self-clean bathrooms often break down. They're not vandal-proof, and they don't stand the test of time. And that was pretty clear in the research that I did. There are many towns and cities that had issues with those type of bathrooms and actually are removing them now. So when breakdowns happen, they require outside maintenance, and worst case, they're not able to be used until the repairs happen. So that was a concern to me. So Summit Council, I think, my fear is that they have unreasonable expectations for this bathroom. And I hope we're not being set up for disappointment with these bathrooms. But the fact is, we own a bathroom that can't be returned or realistically sold, and there's few options left here, and I realize that. But let me be clear and just say that if we didn't already own this bathroom, I wouldn't support moving ahead with this project. I just don't believe this type of bathroom's the best option, but like I said, we own it now, so it's decision time. I'd like to thank Brandon for the work he's done on that. I'm very happy to see that the bids have come in at a lot less, although they're still higher than the original estimates. But if the install can be done without having to use the built-in contingency funding, and we're successful with a grant, there's a good chance that the install price will be a lot closer to what the original install price was. So I will support this tonight, despite my reluctance, because I want to be able to focus on other things and move on from this project. And I see very few other options at this point.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Clark. Very much appreciated and always thoughtful, as per usual. But apparently we do have a date, Julia, that I think to the question that was asked earlier.
I don't have a specific date, but it should be around the beginning of April that we'll know.
That April will know about the grant. Okay, thank you for that. That's great. Okay, I think that's it. I'm calling the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And I echo, thank you, Brandon, for all of the work on this. Okay, so Brandon, you're not leaving. Because we have a report number OPS-2024-2, 16 High Street, the retaining wall replacement. And I do have a motion that has been moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Morrison, whereas the town of Huntsville is the owner of the property located at 16 High Street, and whereas the town's retaining wall runs north and south along the east side of the property between 16 High Street and 57 Main Street East. And whereas 57 Main Street East has a legal right-of-way over the town's property onto High Street. And whereas the retaining wall was in need of urgent repair and impeding onto the right-of-way. And whereas due to safety concerns, staff had the retaining wall repaired in late 2023. Now therefore be it resolved that the cost of the retaining wall of $26,000 be funded from the roads capital reserve. Brandon.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, this project came to light. The owner of 57 Main Street approached the town of Huntsville based on the legal obligation the town has for the retaining wall. So just so you all know, 16 High Street is adjacent to the theater over here. And in between Ed Weeb's property, there's a laneway that goes down there to 57. So staff inspected that retaining wall. It was found to be, it had failed. It needed repair. It was infringing on the legal access that that individual has to his property. So town received four bid submissions for that. They were through the informal procurement process under that threshold. And we obtained a successful contractor and we completed the retaining wall. That should be good for many, many years now. So we feel that the town of Huntsville's met the legal obligation to that subject property. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question, Brandon. The last photograph that you presented to us with the, I guess it's a backhoe, was that showing a parking spot? Is that where the new parking spot will be?
Through Your Worship, yeah, that parking spot is dedicated to the 57 Main Street.
Are there any, thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thanks, Brendan. Okay. And you're still with us. Okay. Not that we don't really enjoy your company, we do. So our next report is report number OPS-2024-4, Muskoka Road 3, Aspen Road, cost sharing paved shoulders. And I do have a lengthy motion, so. It has been moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald, whereas, I think I just called you Fitzgerald. Whereas on May 23rd, 2023, Council adopted resolution number 117-23 requesting the District Municipality of Muskoka provide the town of Huntsville with a feasibility study, estimated costs and plan for the installation of paved shoulders on Muskoka Road 3. And whereas on June 28th, 2023, DMM provided the town with the feasibility study and cost portion for Muskoka Road number 3 North and Muskoka Road 3 Aspen Road. And whereas on July 24th, 2023, Council adopted resolution number 152-23 requesting DMM include paved widened shoulders in the design of all projects that include repair, rebuilding, or resurfacing of any district roadways within the town of Huntsville where such widening is possible. And whereas DMM completed the roadworks and paved shoulders at the end of July, early August 2023 on Muskoka Road 3 North and Muskoka Road 3 Aspen Road. And whereas DMM has provided an invoice in the amount of $142,036 for the roadworks. And whereas budget and financial controls policy requires that funding for any new capital shall not displace funding for existing infrastructure. And whereas the need for paved shoulders can be attributed to growth and therefore eligible for development charge funding. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to pay DMM the full invoice amount of $142,036 to be taken from Town Working Funds Reserve in the amount of $82,036 and development charges in the amount of $60,000. And further that staff be directed to consider amounts to be included in the draft 2025 budget and related funding sources for costs relating to paved shoulders on district-owned roads. Do you still want to make a presentation on it?
I think we need to talk to the clerk's department.
Okay, so with that, are there questions? Yes, Councillor Kluche.
I know it might be a long shot here, but with $142,036, do we know how much a meter that cost us roughly? Just so that we know going ahead in the future that, you know, like I'm not putting you on the spot here, just do we know by meter or how by 100 meters or?
Through your worship, to go that route, I can get that number for you. I don't have it here today. It was done through a district awarded contract. So there will be per meter pricing in their contract. So I can obtain that and distribute it to you.
Yeah, for us going forward, that we might have a better ballpark figure than after. So, I mean, it's got to be done, but as long as we have a bit of a better ballpark going forward.
Yeah, through your worship, we are undertaking our road needs study this year, and as part of that, we get those per meter prices on all of our assets. So we'll have that up front and center.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Brandon. I guess just a question for us around council, maybe CAO Corey. Like, we agreed around this table to fund half the cost. So is the reason that Brandon has to come to us, or in future, can it just be agreed that we've agreed to pay it? For procedure, I'm just wondering.
Great question. CAO Corey.
Thank you, Worship. So there is currently no funding in the budget to pay for that. If it's something that we can work with the district on, looking at their projects that they're considering for future years, then we can anticipate what those costs will be in budget accordingly. But in this particular case, there was not any budget allocated to that project.
But on future projects, I think, is that where you were going?
Yeah, so just as a follow-up, because we agreed that we want more active transportation, so I'm worried that if it's not budgeted and it comes back to council or a future council, then they could say, no, we're not doing it, when the spirit of our strategic plan is to do it. So I don't know if there's a way to say that for future projects that we've agreed to do it and it should come into a certain reserve or it should be taken care of, because I'd be worried that we would slow down the process of continuing to provide paved shoulders.
I believe Brandon wants to respond to that.
Yeah, please, through your worship. For this instance, it was the timing of the motion that came with the district in order to determine the funding sources. There wasn't currently one for it. Having this motion now and monthly meetings with the district, we can plan ahead for this. If they want to do Ravenscliff Road, that's 3 years out. We have enough time to plan that. We get the costs up front. We can budget appropriately for it. So we are currently working on all of that now with the district that we have it. Just the time of the motion, they were already under contract. And although it wasn't the perfect scenario, we would have reported back. But the district paved it ahead in good faith under the sound motion that council put forward.
Right, that's great. And Julia, do you have something to?
Sure. Thank you. So just with regards to our budget and financial controls policy and with our capital budget, we did note that the funding that is in place that we're growing our reserves for are for our existing capital. So this is not our existing capital, this is new capital and it actually isn't owned by the town. So I think that's important because we want to make sure in future budgets, we're actually allocating money to a reserve because we don't currently have a reserve for these types of projects.
Thank you both for that. All right, are there any other questions? Yes, Brandon.
Through your worship, one important thing, I apologize for not reading the report, but there's one important thing in there that by doing these paved shoulders, they are not classified as active transportation trails under the active transportation motion. So they're not signed as such and they're not painted as such. So I have received confirmation from the district that they will only be maintaining the road as per the minimum maintenance standards and shoulder widths. So you won't see those shoulders fully paved off for people to walk on during the winter. Until we dedicate it as an active transportation trail, then they're not gonna do that. So they have to move the snow, meet the minimum maintenance standards, but they're not gonna be paving or plowing the extra wide shoulders right off.
So you're referring to plowing, not paving, yeah, winter maintenance.
Yeah, so it's, through your worship, it's,
Yeah.
it's still under their jurisdiction for winter maintenance,
Right.
and their winter maintenance is gonna continue as usual. When you get into active transportation trails
Yes,
or paved
we-
shoulders, they have their own minimum maintenance standards. And that has not been adhered to. They have no direction for that or anything at this point. So it's strictly regular minimum maintenance standards on their road. And the asset is still 100% the District of Muskoka.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. All right, there's more work maybe on that, but yeah, okay. Any other questions? All right, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. And I think you're off the hook, Brandon. Thank you. Yeah. Unless you want to do the next report, which I believe is the CAO, so maybe she'd like it if you'd like to do it. A bio break, okay, I'm being requested for a bio break, so how about 10 minutes? Is that too, or 10 minutes? Oh, 10, Councillor Cloutier. Thank you. We are now back live, and we are moving to agenda item 9.6, and it is with respect to report number CAO-2024-1, responsibilities of the Chief Administrative Officer bylaw, repeal and replace. And I do, before asking our CAO to speak to this, we do have a motion. It has been moved by Deputy Mayor Armour, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that the draft responsibilities of the Chief Administrative Officer bylaw attached to report CAO-2024-1 be approved, and further that the draft bylaw be added to the February council meeting for final approval, and further that any references to bylaw 2011-83 be replaced with the new adopted bylaw number. And I think we do have a proposed amendment, and I thought I might read it, and then I'll turn it over to Councillor Morrison for suggesting the amendment, and then I'll turn it over to you. All right? Does that make sense? Okay. So you're putting the amendment on the screen, Kalea, and okay, so I'm not reading the whole thing. It has been moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Renwick. So be it resolved that the draft responsibilities of the Chief Administrative Officer bylaw attached to report CAO-2024-1 be approved with the following amendment. Section 4E be struck out and replaced with the following. In conjunction with the Director of Financial Services, have delegation of authority to utilize the Human Capital Reserve Funds up to a maximum of $25,000 annually to address matters related to human capital. And further that the draft bylaw be added to the February council meeting for final approval, and further that any references to bylaw 2011-83 be replaced with the new adopted bylaw number. And with that, I will ask Councillor Morrison if you wouldn't mind speaking to the amendment. And I'm doing this a little bit out of order because I haven't given the CAO an opportunity. Would you like to go first before? Yeah. Maybe you should go first.
Sure,
and then
thank you.
Councillor Morrison,
Thank you very much,
can
Your
follow.
Worship.
Thanks
So
for
the
following
CAO
that.
bylaw, it's been quite some time since the CAO bylaw was updated. It was 2011, and many things have changed since that time. The other recommendation in the report is for delegation of HR policies and procedures to be delegated to the CAO, as I am the individual, the organization that runs the operation. So it would be most suitable to leave that decision at the CAO level with reporting back to council on a regular basis. So just mainly to do an update and to delegate some authorities to the CAO regarding HR policies.
Thank you for that. And maybe I'll ask Councillor Morrison if you want to speak to your amendment, and then I will open it up to the floor. It's a bit out of order still, but that's okay.
Sounds good. CEO Corey asked me just to speak to the amendment because it came out of our chair's agenda review meeting last week. And it's, was that this? Yeah, last week, I'm losing track. It's a much needed update to the CAO policy bylaw, and it was done in conjunction with a lot of research into comparable bylaws. So it's a lot of boilerplate stuff that just needed housekeeping. This one came out of a discussion because when you really look at it, the purpose of something like this is so that if CEO Corey has a staffing need for some training or stuff like that, it might be $1,000. There's no real parameters for them to do that because it's within the budget requirements. So we changed the wording to take out the budget parameters, and I'll just look at it so I'm telling the proper words. Within the parameters of the approved budget, so that CEO Corey can make those decisions more nimbly and get things done quicker. And we put up to a maximum of $25,000 annually because CEO Corey felt that was a reasonable number, and it just shows more checks and balances under the system. That's really about it.
Okay, thank you for that update on that. And there will still be, I think, a quarterly report to council from the CAO.
So through your worship, a part of the bylaw stipulates that I will do reporting to council with any of the changes that I have implemented regarding HR policies. So there's still a reporting mechanism.
Okay, that's great. Are there any questions with respect to the proposed amendment? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I guess I will call the question. on the proposed amendment, and we don't need to put it back up on the screen because I read the whole thing. Okay, so I will call the question. All those in favor of the amendment? And that carries all the way around. So I will call the question on the main motion as amended. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. So moving along to agenda item 9.7 with respect to report number Corp-2024-3 budget matters and excluded expense 2024. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. Be it resolved that Council approve the excluded expenses from the Town of Huntsville 2024 consolidated budget as outlined in Report Corp-2024-2. I think that's straightforward, and you're here if there are any questions. And so I'm going to ask, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Okay, and this one, I think that's right, I'm crossing off. So I have one last under reports from officers. We're being joined by Ms. Frame with respect to report number Corp-2024-1, our brand spanking new Town of Huntsville strategic plan. And I do have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Town of Huntsville strategic plan as attached to report Corp-2024-1. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Reva.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. So the development of the strategic plan began back in June of last year in 2023. And included a review of the town's current strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and how the new strategic plan could address those. The process also included quite a lot of consultation, both internally with staff and council, and with the public. The initial public consultation included a survey and several in-person pop-up events to get feedback on what's most important to the community. Next, we had some virtual focus groups, which were held to gain more in-depth feedback on the priority areas that were identified through the survey and the pop-ups. The strategic plan consultants then led several workshops to develop the where do we want to go, what do we want to do, and how we can do it aspects of the plan. So the information from these workshops was combined to create the draft strategic plan that was presented to council in November. The last phase was to go back to the public and ask, did we get it right? This was done through a 2-week public survey in late November, early December, right after the draft was presented to council. The results of the survey are included in the staff report in more detail. Overall, the majority of feedback received was positive. Between 65 and 77% agreed that the pillars and the vision resonated with them. Respondents who did not resonate with the vision or the strategic pillars did provide comments on how the plan and its goals could be enhanced or expanded. These comments really could be categorized into 3 different areas. So the first were comments that can be addressed by goals or initiatives that are already in the plan. So for example, one of the comments was, we need more doctors and other health providers as soon as possible. Well, this is actually already addressed by goal number 1 and all of the underlying initiatives in the lively, healthy, and safe communities pillar. So the second sort of category of comment was those comments that are expected to be addressed in the next phase of action planning. So for example, one of the comments was, although the statements are great, words like partners need to be defined. Well, specific projects in the action plan would actually be expected to outline specifically who the partners are for that project. So those comments will be dealt with in that way. The third category of comments related to an assessment of the current state of things rather than the new strategic direction. So for example, one of the comments was, this doesn't resonate because it isn't happening. The intention, I think it's really important to note here, the intention of the strategic plan is to guide decisions going forward and doesn't necessarily reflect what has been done in the past. So at this point, staff are not recommending any changes to the draft plan because the majority of respondents agreed or resonated with the plan. And the majority of the comments that were received from those who didn't resonate can be addressed either by specific elements already in the plan or expected to be addressed in the implementation. So I just wanted to briefly touch on some of the next steps. So once the plan is adopted by council, staff will switch our focus to create a corporate action plan. So formally, we would refer to these as business plans to meet the goals and initiatives that are outlined in the strategic plan. To enhance both the transparency and increase the accountability for the projects contained in the action plan, a strategy execution software tool was included in the 2024 budget. This tool will provide dashboard capabilities and increase reporting tools to showcase project details and provide progress updates to the community and the public in real time. Staff have also already developed a strategic plan website, which is ready to be launched once the plan is adopted. And it will be communicated to the public through various means, media releases, social media posts, that sort of thing. Internally, we're also working on various ways to ensure that the town's mission, vision, and values are consistently at the forefront of how staff approach daily tasks, how services are offered, and any recommendations for projects moving forward. So unless specifically required through legislation, any new projects or directives moving forward will need to support the strategic vision of the town and work towards achieving the strategic goals and initiatives that are contained in this plan. So I am available for questions.
Thank you for that. So it's extensive. And you didn't reference that, I think in the first go round, maybe you did, and I apologize. We had over 1,400 responses to the first survey, right? Which is highly unusual. Would you like to expand on that? Just because I think that that's a really important feature.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we actually got 1,500 responses to our initial survey back in the summer, which is quite a lot for a population of only 20,000. Our communications team really tried to push participation in the survey. We wanted to hear from as many people as we possibly could, which is why we held in-person events, the pop-ups, the focus groups to get more information. And those were fairly well attended as well. So we really wanted the community to be a part of developing this plan.
Thank you for that. All right, are there comments, questions? No? Okay. All right, thank you. And I did actually read the motion, so I don't need to reread it. I will call the question. All those in favor? And that's great. And Reba, job really well done. Thank you for all of the work you put into that. That was brilliant. I'm quite proud of the strategic plan. Okay, moving along to bylaws and agreements for passage. I do have to read them all. Pretty sure. That, and then I don't have to. It's in the agenda. Okay, that's so great. Okay, moving along to bylaws, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Armour, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2024-2 to 2024-12 inclusive be reported and passed this 29th day of January 2024. And I won't read all of the bylaws because they are exactly as they were in our online public package. So, are there questions, comments? All those in favor? And that carries. All right, so moving to our first item under new business, which is the bus shelter donation. We do have a motion. I'm going to read it. It has been moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour, whereas in accordance with Resolution 218-23, the District of Muskoka and Ontario Northland have implemented a bus stop location at 60 Station Road. And whereas on January 29th, 2024, Council received a deputation from Bradley O'Kelly, Best Life Homes, regarding a donation of a bus shelter. And now therefore be it resolved that Council approves the donation in principle and directs the Operations Department to work with Best Life Homes, the District of Muskoka, and Ontario Northland on its placement at 60 Station Road, as well as to satisfy all requirements, including but not limited to insurance, maintenance, accessibility, and report back to Council. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Cluche.
I just, is for sure that's where it's going? Like, you know, like there's not going to be something else pop up here in the future where, you know, like, are they happy with the bus company and ourselves and the district all happy with that location?
As far as we know at this point, that's the only location they have for the bus, right? And so we have worked out the arrangement with the district. That's all. So I'm at this point, as to if you're talking about future, when the train comes back, there are all sorts of things that have to be talked about. But at this time, this makes all the sense in the world because that's the approved site.
And I think anything that's built there can be moved besides the footing. So the outside, you know, the top shelter, if it, you know, if we go somewhere else, we can take the shelter with us.
I would
I just wanna make
absolutely
sure.
think that's the case, but I'm not the appropriate person as a.
Well, I would think so.
I would, if you, I would think Monty, of all people, you'd be the one who'd know. Sorry.
Should be able to move it. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Anyone over there who, would- I think, we're seeing some heads nod in the affirmative. Yes, CAO Corey, please do.
Thank you, Worship. So I don't think we're comfortable in answering that question at this time, but during discussions with the company, we will certainly ask about the feasibility of relocation in the future if need be. So.
See, that's what I should have said. That's exactly what, that makes all the sense in the world to me. So, okay, yes, Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Worship. And I'm not sure who could answer this question, but does the bus shelter become an asset of the town once it's donated to us? So we are,
yes,
like we would look after it. We would make sure that if it cracks, okay, it's ours.
In fact, that begs the question about ongoing maintenance. CAO Corey?
Thank you, Worship. So part of the report coming back will be maintenance and the responsibility putting it into our capital plan. I'm assuming that if we now own it, we'll want to look for potentially capital plan replacement. So all of that will be in the report.
Great questions. Councillor Morrison?
Thank you. I'm excited. I wish the gentleman was still here so we could give him a standing ovation. The fact that he's doing this for our town and his company is. The only concern I have is the time. Is there a way that we can agree to just do it and not come back to council? Because unless you come back to council and say there's something wrong with the site, we're going to approve this thing and it's just going to take another month or 2 months to get it done.
I love that suggestion. So I'm going to look to CAO Corey one more time.
Okay, trusting the staff is going to take care of the things
Yeah.
we need taken care of.
And I'm wondering if did it read that way? No.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I was wondering if the clerk could bring it up on the screen because we actually don't have it on our agenda. But we could look at wording it in such a way if council is comfortable upon the final approval of CAO, then we could do that.
I would like that, even if it's yourself and the mayor that signs off on it, whatever it takes to not take more time, because I don't think it has to come back to us.
I totally agree with you. And the need is there now. So it's horrible when you see people out. So do we need to, now therefore, council approves the donation in principle and directs the operator to work with Best Life on its placement as well as satisfy all requirements, including, and so we just remove and report back to council.
Yeah.
Right?
You would just remove that. Yeah.
So-
Council approves the donation, so you're saying yes?
Yeah, and we're
then
assuming
you're
that.
just going to leave it with the Director of Operations to work out the details.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right.
And we certainly, if anything
That's an amendment?
major comes up, we'll report back to council, but
If there are issues.
I would ask, I haven't been the staff member dealing directly with it, Your Worship, so I would defer to either Acting Director Bissonette or Director Maxwell. Is there anything you see glaring that would be an issue we may want council okay on? Or are you comfortable with us proceeding the way the direction's written?
We're
Okay, I'm getting yeses, so we're comfortable
Two
with that.
nods.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Randy didn't actually nod, but he didn't go the other way either. So, yeah, Kirsten nodded, so there we go. All right, so is this a formal amendment or
I think just one more thing to add.
one more thing to add?
I could run it past Jessica.
Okay, should we take 1 minute while you do it? Okay, and further that. It's a further that. Oh, be signed? Is that what you're thinking of? Okay. Yes. Clerk, okay. So, do I need to read the now therefore be it resolved? Or can I just, we can all read it? So I read the main motion. So in the amendment, we're removing in principle after council approves the donation. And we are also removing at the very end of the paragraph, including but not limited to insurance, maintenance, accessibility, period. And we're removing and report back to council. And we're also adding and further that any required documentation be approved and to be signed by the mayor and clerk. Yes. Julia, you have something you'd like to, should we take a minute if we're crafting this, just no more than a minute or two? Two minutes? Julia, are you adding something to this? Okay, we need 1 minute. Okay, all right. Thanks, everybody, for granting us that minute or two just to get it right. And I think we do now have it. So the last and further that any required documentation be signed by the mayor and clerk. And that's a little better. So are there any questions with respect to the amendment? I'm not seeing any. Oh, right. Thank you, Tanya. That was supposed to, all right. All right, so I will call the question on the amendment. Oh, sorry. We do have a motion moved. The amendment has been moved by Councillor Morrison and seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Now I can call the question. I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries. And so now I can call the question on the main motion as amended. All those in favor? And that carries too. I don't have anything to sign because it's all new, it's all there. So we are going to move to item 11.2, which is with respect to the Port Sydney Health Hub. And this is a really neat motion that I will read, I guess, the whole thing. It's one page. It has been moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald, whereas the town of Huntsville entered into an agreement with Cottage Country Family Health Team in 2016 to operate a mobile health hub at the Port Sydney Fire Station number 5. And whereas the Cottage Country Family Health Team will soon cease operations for the mobile health hub, and whereas the town has been the recipient of donations from the Cottage Country Family Health Team in a cumulative amount of $12,000, which has been placed in the Community Health Care Reserve with future use to be determined. And whereas in July 2022, Council passed Motion 185-22 to support a medical clinic for unattached patients in Huntsville, which we heard about earlier. And whereas the town has entered into an agreement with the Algonquin Family Health Team to provide the location of 1 Minerva Street, the annex, for the purpose of providing a community health care clinic with the Algonquin Family Health Team, covering a portion of costs, annex operating costs. And whereas the Huntsville Health Care Clinic does not currently have permanent ongoing funding to support and expand the clinic, now therefore be it resolved that the balance in the town's community health care reserve in the amount of $12,000 be utilized in 2024 for costs that are the responsibility of the Algonquin Family Health Team for the purpose of operating the Huntsville Health Care Clinic. And further that, the town's community health care reserve be terminated. Are there any questions with respect to that awesome motion? Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, and I think we'll all enthusiastically support this. And I ask, it doesn't have to necessarily be a motion, but I ask that the next time we meet, Director Maxwell, myself, Councillor Stone, about the allocation of MAP funds, we consider some ongoing support for this, because the growth of tourism creates growth in emergency room visits, creates strains on our healthcare. And we do have a portion already scheduled to be allocated for miscellaneous funds. So I think we could look at, after we find out how their grant application goes, where is the need and what can we do to help for ongoing funding?
Appreciate that comment, and you should know that we also are pursuing a couple of other avenues as well for some type of funding, but I really appreciate that. So we'll have a bigger conversation, and in the meantime, keep our fingers crossed. Yes, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Just more of a comment. It was nice to hear tonight they got enough to continue operating for 6 months. And this will add a few more weeks to that. So get us right through the summer into the early fall. So that's great news.
Really great. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think a lot of residents in Port Sydney and Edison surrounding area that were utilizing facilities there are a little disheartened, but I think there's been a pickup with paramedicine and outreach there, and there's still a facility in Gravenhurst that they're going to be operating, so to be able to go there. I did have a question about our reserve. It seems like this is going to be something that is going to continually come across our table. Is the reserve something that we want to eliminate completely, or do we want to have some funds set aside so they're there?
Right, because you're quite right. It's saying the community health care reserve be terminated. So does that
I'm wondering
mean?
if that's really in our best interest, or do we set something else up?
I have a hand up from both our CAO and our director.
Oh, thank you, Worship. I was just going to ask if Director Mackenzie could respond to that.
She did. She's ready. Her hand is up enthusiastically.
Our policy for reserves say that once those funds no longer exist, that we should terminate the reserve. So the purpose of that reserve was the money that we were getting from the Port Sydney donations. So that is now completed. So if we wanted to look at setting up a new reserve in the future, I would keep it as a separate start over in 2025.
I think it's, thank you for that. And I think it is something that council might, maybe at another meeting, consider what a new reserve with
Yeah.
a similar heading might look like.
Yeah, if I may just follow up on that, I think it's something we should keep on our radar because, as we've heard as of late, they like partnerships. If we have money in a reserve, we are ready to become a partner in the
Right.
community, so.
I think it's, the intent is
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, in the meantime, I don't see any other questions or comments, so I will call the question. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Thank you. So, moving right along, we have our, under general information, council correspondence, and the next item was the Muskoka Watershed Council is hosting their Integrated Watershed Management Conference for municipalities on February 9th, 2024. I wanted to put that out there that there are several staff who are attending because this was intended for the lower tier municipalities to just educate all of us on what integrated watershed management looks like. At this point, I believe I am the only member of council going, and I would suggest, are you going, Councillor Fitzgerald? That's great. Okay. If we do have money in the funds, it's not a lot of money. If anyone else would like to sign up, because I think it's going to be an important conference, but there will be more coming. So if you miss it, that's okay. So the second item under general information was, as everybody knows, the Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare are starting their public meetings tonight on the rollout of the programming for the two proposed hospital sites. And in Huntsville, the meeting will be on February 1st, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Active Living Center. And if you can't make that, there are 2 virtual sessions that are being considered tonight. It's being held in Lake of Bays, and I believe tomorrow is in Gravenhurst, and Wednesday in Burkes Falls, Thursday in Huntsville, and then next week is Bracebridge. So I highly recommend everybody go to the Huntsville meeting. I know that we've all had calls and conversations with people in our community, and I think it's important to note that perhaps the Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare didn't get all of their information out before some disinformation got out. And so I think we've all had conversations with people who were really concerned, and I think unnecessarily so, because there's a lot to offer in both hospital sites in the proposal. So I just wanted to say, and if there are anything else anybody else might want to add with respect to that upcoming meeting, speak now. Okay, and hopefully we'll see everybody there. Okay, so moving right along. Oh, apparently I'm up next, and I have a tickle in my throat, so I think I'm going to be really fast. This is the District of Muskoka update. The District Council meeting as of December 18th, it was the meeting where we approved the District 2024 budget, and which resulted in a net levy of $94,259,104. And out of that was the ongoing contribution from the district of $1.8 million, 39,500, which is to go towards a separate health care facility reserve for its contribution to the 2 new hospitals. So I think that was the biggie as far as district council. And at CAPS, at the Community and Planning Services Committee meeting, it was in December, it seems like such a long time ago now, December 18th. And one item I thought of interest to Huntsville was our committee approved the draft approval of plan of subdivision for Edgeview Place subdivision in the town of Huntsville. And I think that was for about 12 different lots off Muskoka Road 3, as I recall. So I think other than that, there were a few other items, but that's what I wanted to highlight. Anybody have any questions, or did I leave anything out of district? Okay. With that, I will ask Deputy Mayor Armour.
Sure.
You have an update.
Yeah, EPW, we met on January 17th. It was a virtual meeting because the agenda was so short. We approved a few variances to some work being done. We also had an update on our bin transition site. Huntsville did have 15 bins. We're down to actually 1 bin now left in Huntsville for garbage, so they're working on replacing that one. I think the key to the whole thing was we had an update on Mount View. I think you remember a few weeks ago, there was an article in the Doppler talking about the location, and they started the new build. So I reached out to Commissioner Still, and basically I asked him how they chose the location and what surplus property is going to be available afterwards. So he said the pumping station was selected through an engineering design process. The location was selected based on constraints. So where the current operation is, they took into consideration the floodplain, et cetera. And there's also impacts to the butternut trees and existing vegetation around the area. And also they got to keep the main electrical and sewers operating in the meantime. So, but he did say at the time, they determined there at this time surplus property and or condition would be offered in. This won't take up place till 26 to 27 when they actually have a full view of how much property is going to be available there. So that's basically my update. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be willing to answer them.
Guess what? There's a question. Guess what? Councillor Clute.
I just want to make a statement that was put forth to me and involved CAO too. Town of Huntsville taxpayer dollars built that pumping station. That was our land. We paid for it. We gave it to the district. Why do we have to buy it back?
I think that's a great
Well,
question,
either.
At this time, there is no talk about cost.
No.
Okay.
So it's about how much property would be left and how much will be available once there's new pumping stations in place. But
So what you're saying is basically they have to put a pumping station there.
Yes.
So they've selected the location, but they still need to know how much need of land
Yes.
is to go with it. But to your question, there was reference in one of the meetings to some cost. And at the time, every Huntsville person that attended that meeting perked up and said, well, that shouldn't be the case. So we are all over this one.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure
I agree.
we are, but yes.
Well,
Yeah.
and stay
Yeah.
on it.
Stay on it.
I think that you're quite right. We do need to stay on it. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But that also, we passed that motion around this table with respect to Town of Huntsville has an interest in the Mount View site as well as the old Fairburn site. And that in that motion, it said, and we will continue to dialogue with the existing owners, which would be District and MUC. So we'll continue though, Councillor Cloutier. Good. I'm glad you raised that. All right, I don't see any other questions for you, sir. So, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. The last meeting, they changed the day and time last minute, and I'd already had a committed meeting about Pittman's Bay, so I wasn't able to attend, but I read the minutes and there was nothing of substance to report. The meeting before that, on December 20th, the one thing to update is that there was 2 presenters looking at installing EV charging stations on district property, and the award went to Lakeland, which we're all shareholders in, which is great. And they're going to be installing more EV stations around the district, on district-owned property. That's about it.
And I thank you for highlighting that because that actually was confirmed at District Council too. Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Morrison? Okay, seeing none. And Councillor Stone is not here to report on the Health Services Committee, but for the public, they can view the minutes from that meeting on the district website. So with that, under events, we'll move to events and updates. And we do have one. If Deputy Mayor Armour, did you want to highlight anything from the Roma conference, or did we sort of do that with our discussion with the ministers' meeting?
Yeah, I think we sort of did that. The presentations weren't the greatest this year, but it's my first time attending Roma. But I really enjoyed the morning discussions with the hearing from the Premier, the Minister of Health, et cetera. They were excellent. And the questions coming from other municipalities who are struggling with the same issues we are when it comes to healthcare, walk-in clinics, housing initiatives. So it was good that way. So I'm really glad I attended, and there's some really good information that we bring back. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. That's what I actually always find interesting at those bear pit sessions, because you do hear from other municipalities with those questions. They line up way ahead of time. And you're right, you discover that you're certainly not alone on similar issues. And one of the comments that struck me around healthcare was nurse practitioners are not allowed to bill OHIP like doctors do. So a number of municipal representatives asked that question: when will the province start considering that? And if they did, that would certainly put our own health clinic in a different footing, on a different footing. So yes, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Yeah, just to follow up with that, the interesting part too, I don't know how many people have family physicians and you go in and see their nurse they have on site. If you just see the nurse and go home, there's no payment at all. You have to have an appointment with the doctor to be paid, for the doctor to be paid. So that's interesting too, that even the RN, they can't bill for the RN and the duties they do in a doctor's office. So it's very interesting.
That's it. That's it for updates. Unless somebody, I should ask, are there any updates? Okay, seeing none. I do have a motion moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2024-13 be received and passed this 29th day of January 2024. All those in favor? And that carries. I have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 7:58 p.m. All those in favor? And that carries all the way around. Thank you, everybody.